Hello and welcome to our new lecture on React Native, in which we'll focus on the if-else statement. Okay, so if statements, else statements, and else-if statements will all be covered today. These three concepts are assertions. Let's look at how comparison operators are actually used in an if statement now that the concept has been presented in the last session. So let's now begin with the if-else sentence. To start, make a variable called x and give it the value of 5. Use an if statement now and set the condition to x greater than 3. Console x is greater now. The code looks like this: var x equals 5. If x greater than 3, curly brackets, console.log x is greater. Close curly brackets. Now launch node index from the terminal. Because 5 is greater than 3, the result x is greater will be printed in the terminal by JS. So, if you type x greater than 6 in the condition field, nothing will be printed in the terminal, which proves that the if statement is false because 6 is not bigger than 5. Now that you've used the else statement, the if statement will print if the condition is true, but the else statement will print if the condition changes to be false. Also, use the console in the else statement and enter false. This false is a string rather than a data type. The Boolean data type will be printed if false is entered without inverted commas. So, the code of the if statement is as follows: var x equals 5. If x greater than 6, console.log x is greater. Else, console.log false. Now go to the terminal and run node index.js. The else statement false will be printed in the terminal because x is equal to 5 and 5 is not greater than 6. Now if you run the following code, var x equals 10, if x greater than 6, open curly brackets, console.log x is greater, else curly brackets, console.log false. Now that x equals 10 and 10 is greater than 6 as specified in the if condition, the if statement x is greater will be written. Also, you have the option of making several statements. So create a variable with the name student and give the student 50 marks for this example. Create several distinct circumstances and then test each one separately. 3 operators and, or, and not operators that were not previously addressed will now be employed in this situation. When compared, the and or operators are nearly identical, but the not operator is slightly different. The exclamation mark is not used with operators. So as opposed to the not operator, the and operator and or operator are used more frequently. A student variable is created and 50 marks are given to it. Use the operator student greater than or equal to 80 and student equals to 100 to create the if condition. Then type console.log a+. This procedure's code is as follows: var student equals 50. If brackets student greater than or equal to 80 and student less than or equal to 100, console.log brackets a+, else curly brackets console.log fail, close curly brackets. Now go to the terminal and run node index.js. The result fail will be printed because the student's mark is 50 and 50 is not greater than 80. Now let's use else if statement, which is as follows: var student equals 95. If student greater than or equal to 80 and student less than or equal to 100, console.log brackets a+. Else if student greater than or equal to 70 and student less than or equal to 80, console.log b+. The code means that if a student's grade is between 80 and 100, the student will be awarded an A+ grade and A+ will be printed in the terminal. And if their grade is between 70 and 80, the grade B+ will be printed. Now, launch node index from the terminal. The grade A+ will be printed in the terminal because the student's marks met the if condition. The second criteria will be met if you give the pupil 75 points. A B+ grade will then be displayed on the terminal. Now, let's create another if statement that prints C+ in the terminal if the student's grades are between 60 and 70. After that, create another if statement that says to print D+ in the terminal if the student's marks are between 50 and 60. Make another if-then statement that orders fail should be printed in the terminal if the student's grade is below 50. Finally, add an else sentence and execute console.log, so enter valid marks. The entire procedure's code is as follows: var student equals 75, if brackets student greater than or equal to 80, and then student less than or equal to 100, console.log A+, else if student greater than or equal to 70, and student less than or equal to 80, console.log B+, else if student greater than 60, and student less than or equal to 70, console.log C+, else if student greater than or equal to 50, and student less than or equal to 60, console.log D+, else if student less than 50, console.log fail, else console.log enter valid marks. Thus, this uses the AND operator. Now, if you open a terminal window and type node index.js, the grade B+ will be displayed because the student's score is 75, and 75 is between 70 and 80, which satisfies the requirements for a B+ grade. The OR operator is an additional operator. Okay, so the symbol for the OR operator is the straight bar. This sign can be used by hitting the shift button, which is located on the left side of the enter button. One of the statements in the OR operator must be true for the terminal to print anything else. Each condition in an operator will be examined individually. Okay, now, if you give the student 65 marks, the grade of C+ will print in the terminal. Now, if you give the student 55 marks, the grade of D+ will print in the terminal. And of course, the terminal will output fail if you give the student 45 marks. Therefore, you can check each condition one at a time this way. Now, if you give a student any invalid grades, the statement input valid marks will print in the terminal. Okay, so using this technique, you can use the if-else expression to run multiple functions. Alright, so that's pretty much it for this lecture, and now on to the next one.